Returning to the old school. Jack stood silently before the rusted iron gate of his old school. The twisted metal bars stretched out like bony fingers from the past, pulling him back. A cold autumn breeze swept across the abandoned schoolyard, carrying faded leaves that twirled in the air like a dance of memories. Jack took a deep breath. He had promised himself never to return to this place, but today, something compelled him to step through the gate that had remained closed for decades. As the rusty door let out a creaking groan, Jack felt his heart skip a beat. The elementary school he once knew was now nothing more than a decaying ruin, worn down by time. The glass windows had shattered, leaving only bare wooden frames. The walls were covered in patches of green moss, the peeling paint revealing old, red bricks beneath. The hallway where he had once run and played was now blanketed in dust and dry leaves, creating a rustling carpet beneath his feet. Jack walked slowly along the brick path leading to the schoolyard. The rusted swings remained, swaying gently in the wind, emitting faint creaks like whispers from the past. A crooked basketball hoop stood alone in the middle of the yard, its metal rim bent, the net long since rotted away. Jack recalled the bright afternoons when he and Billy would shoot hoops together, their laughter echoing across the playground. Now, he stood alone in the eerie silence. Suddenly, a faint sound came from the direction of the old classrooms. Jack startled, turning his head, but all was still. Only dry branches tapped lightly against the window in rhythm with the wind. He shook his head, telling himself it was just his imagination. But as he took another step forward, a different sound broke the silence, a soft, childlike laugh, distant yet unmistakable. Jack froze. A shiver ran down his spine. It wasn't the wind, nor the rustling trees. It was laughter, pure and familiar, a sound he could never forget. His heartbeat quickened. Was this merely a trick of memory, a fragment of the past resurfacing? His steps grew heavier as he approached the classroom corridor. Dust covered the floor, and shards of broken glass shimmered in the pale sunlight. He ran his fingers along the brick wall, feeling its rough texture, as if each crack held a piece of the past. Stopping before an old wooden door, his chest tightened. This was it, his and Billy's classroom. Jack placed his hand on the doorknob, hesitating for a moment before gently pushing it open. The door groaned as it swung inward, revealing a space cloaked in dust and time. The old wooden desks remained, many of them tilted or missing legs. The blackboard at the front was faded, the once bright chalk lines reduced to ghostly smudges. Jack stepped inside, his feet heavy with the weight of memory, making his way to the last desk in the room, the one he and Billy had shared. He reached out and brushed away the thick layer of dust on the desk, revealing small carvings, childish scribbles etched into the wood. Jack and Billy, best friends forever. Jack's hand trembled as he traced the faded letters, feeling as if he were touching a fragment of the past, something sacred that he had never wanted to forget. But before he could linger on the thought, a voice broke the silence. "Jack, you're here." Jack froze, his heart nearly stopping. That voice, it was unmistakable. It was Billy. He spun around, but the classroom remained empty. The golden light of the setting sun filtered through the broken windows, illuminating floating dust particles. But Jack knew he hadn't imagined it. He had heard Billy's voice, as clear as if he were still standing there. Jack closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, the dilapidated classroom was gone. Instead, everything had reverted to the past. Desks and chairs were new, children laughed and chattered, and the blackboard still bore the teacher's handwriting. And there, sitting right beside him, was Billy, his bright eyes full of mischief, his familiar smile unchanged. Memories surged over Jack like a tidal wave. He was no longer a 65-year-old man. He was 12 again, sitting in the classroom, laughing alongside his best friend. But deep down, he knew this was only a memory. And no matter how beautiful, memories could never be held onto forever. Outside the window, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in soft hues of orange. Jack clenched his fists, feeling the emptiness settle in his chest. He understood now. His return was not just about revisiting the past, but about facing himself. And most importantly, about saying goodbye. The golden days. Jack let his eyes close, allowing the tide of memories to carry him back, to a time when life was nothing more than bursts of laughter, afternoons spent running under the sun, and promises that once felt like they would last forever. Jack and Billy had met on a crisp autumn morning when they were just 8 years old. Billy, with his tousled hair and bright, eager eyes, was the loudest boy in the class. Jack, quieter and more reserved, found himself drawn to Billy's boundless energy. They became inseparable. If you saw Jack, Billy was never far behind, and vice versa. In their small town, their friendship was something special. Their elementary school years were filled with endless mischief. One time, they hatched a plan to skip class and go fishing by the river. They thought they had executed it perfectly, until their teacher, Miss Simmons, appeared behind them just as they were proudly showing off a tiny fish they had caught. She didn't yell, didn't punish them. Instead, she folded her arms and gave them a look, stern, yet full of understanding. "Do you boys realize what you missed in class today?" she asked. Both of them hung their heads, knowing she wasn't truly angry. She just wanted them to understand the importance of responsibility. Even so, the mischief never stopped. Billy was the mastermind, and Jack was the executor. One time, Billy convinced Jack to doodle on the teacher's desk, a humorous caricature of Miss Simmons. When she walked into the classroom, they both held their breath, bracing for a storm of fury. But to their surprise, she simply sighed, shook her head, and then smiled. "Next time, if you're going to draw someone, make sure you do a better job," she said, making the whole class burst into laughter. Beyond the classroom and their pranks, the schoolyard was where Jack and Billy felt the freest. They played basketball under the scorching sun, raced each other around the field, and challenged one another to see who could hang from the monkey bars the longest. Billy always won, but Jack never gave up. "One day I'll beat you," Jack would declare, and Billy would only laugh. "Keep dreaming, buddy." But beneath the jokes and the endless laughter, Billy carried a dream. He always talked about the sky, about airplanes gliding through the endless white clouds. "I want to be a pilot, Jack. I want to fly far away, to see the world from above." Every time he said it, his eyes sparkled as if they held the sky itself. Jack never fully understood that longing, but he always nodded. "If you fly, I'll be down here waving at you," Jack would say. Billy grinned. "No way. You'll fly with me, won't you?" One night, as they lay on the grass behind Billy's house, staring up at a sky full of stars, Billy suddenly said, "Jack, no matter what happens, we'll always be friends, right?" Jack didn't hesitate. He simply nodded. "Of course. Always." They locked pinkies beneath the vast night sky, as if that promise would never change. Those golden days were not just filled with laughter, but also with the first lessons about friendship, loyalty, and responsibility. Jack remembered the time Billy had stood up for him when a group of older boys tried to pick a fight. "If you mess with Jack, you mess with me," Billy shouted, even though he was smaller than them. They both got beaten up pretty badly that day, but after that, no one dared to bother them again. Miss Simmons was more than just a teacher. She was a guide in their early years. "Friendship isn't just about the fun times," she once told them. "It's about persistence, sacrifice, and accepting each other no matter what." At the time, Jack and Billy had just laughed and nodded absent-mindedly, but now, looking back, Jack realized it was the most valuable lesson they had ever learned. Billy had always been the bold one, the dreamer, the risk-taker. He never wanted to stay still. We can't just stay here forever, Jack. There's a whole world out there and I want to see it. Jack had only smiled because, to him, this small town was all he ever needed. But Billy was different. He wanted to go beyond the fields and the familiar hills. They once had a grand dream, to travel the world together. They planned their journey, imagined the places they would go, the adventures they would have. We'll go from the East Coast to the West Coast, then across the ocean, and who knows? Billy had said, grinning. I want to see the world through the eyes of a pilot. And you, Jack, you'll write about it. But dreams don't always come true. Time waits for no one, and life has its own way of changing everything. Jack let out a long sigh, gazing up at the overcast sky. That night, the night they locked pinkies under the stars, felt like a lifetime ago. Jack smiled as he recalled those memories. But deep down, he knew that nothing truly lasted forever. The fateful day. That morning started like any other. The sun rose in the distance, casting soft golden rays across the schoolyard. Jack and Billy walked into class, laughing as always, sharing the same old jokes that never got old. Billy seemed a little tired that day, but when Jack asked, he simply waved it off. I'm fine, just a little headache, Billy said with a reassuring smile. Jack believed him, just as he always had. The lesson went on as usual, until suddenly, Billy stopped mid-sentence. He furrowed his brow, pressing a hand to his chest as if struggling to catch his breath. Jack turned to him, his eyes filled with concern. Billy? Are you okay? Billy didn't respond. He wobbled as he tried to stand, but before he could take a step, he collapsed onto the floor. A heavy thud echoed through the classroom. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the room erupted in screams. Miss! Billy just fainted. Miss Simmons rushed to Billy's side, her face drained of color. Billy! Can you hear me? But Billy didn't answer. His breaths were shallow and labored, as if he was desperately clinging to something invisible. Jack dropped to his knees beside his friend, his hands trembling as he grasped Billy's, hands that had always been warm but now felt eerily cold. Billy, don't scare me. Open your eyes. We still have to travel the world, remember? You promised. Billy barely managed a weak smile before his eyelids fluttered closed. Miss Simmons frantically called for an ambulance. Other teachers rushed in, and the class stood frozen, fear and helplessness etched onto their young faces. The sound of the approaching sirens cut through the air, but to Jack, it felt distant, muffled beneath the deafening thud of his own heartbeat. Billy was taken away, and Jack remained outside the classroom, his hands still holding onto the last warmth of his best friend. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He could only watch as the ambulance sped away, disappearing into a cloud of dust. Jack believed Billy would be okay. He convinced himself that tomorrow, Billy would be back, grinning, running, causing trouble like nothing had ever happened. But tomorrow never came. Billy didn't make it. The congenital heart condition he had never spoken about took him away suddenly, without warning, without a chance to say goodbye. And in its place, it left behind a hollow emptiness in Jack's heart. Jack couldn't accept it. He refused to believe Billy was gone forever. In the days that followed, he walked through school in silence. No one pulled him onto the playground. No one whispered mischievous plans in his ear. The seat beside him remained empty. And that emptiness only grew deeper inside him. Jack blamed himself. He held himself responsible for not noticing how exhausted Billy had been, for failing to see the warning signs. If I had paid more attention, if I had told someone sooner, would Billy still be here? The question played over and over in Jack's mind, like a sad melody that never faded. Their dream of traveling the world together was now nothing more than unfinished sketches in Jack's notebook. Every time he opened it, he saw Billy's bright eyes, filled with wonder as he talked about the sky, about the dreams he never had the chance to chase. The day Billy was laid to rest, the sky felt darker than ever. Jack stood before his friend's grave, his heart heavy. He didn't cry, his tears had dried up in the days before. Instead, he placed a paper airplane on Billy's tombstone, the very same kind they had folded together, dreaming that one day, they would soar through the sky. "You promised me, Billy. You said we'd travel the world together. And now it's just me." A gentle breeze passed through, carrying old memories with it. Jack closed his eyes, allowing the sorrow to seep into every corner of his soul. Billy was gone, and nothing could change that. But no matter what, Jack knew he would never forget him. Because their promise still remained, unchanged, unfading. The quiet years. After Billy's death, Jack's world was never the same. The golden days of childhood became distant memories, shrouded in a haze of loss. He was no longer the carefree boy who ran across the schoolyard, laughing alongside his best friend. He withdrew, growing quiet and distant, as if a part of him had vanished with Billy on that fateful morning. Memories were not meant to be escaped. They were meant to be cherished, because they were proof that Billy had lived. That Billy had been real. That he had been an irreplaceable part of Jack's life. Jack took a deep breath, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. Slowly, he walked to the window, where pale sunlight pushed through layers of dust. Outside, the old schoolyard stretched before him, the place where two boys had once run and laughed, where they had dreamed of the future with innocent, boundless hope. That image would always be there, untouched by time. It was time to leave. Jack turned back, taking in the classroom one last time. He reached out, running his fingers gently over the worn wooden desk, as if saying goodbye. Then, with a quiet nod, he stepped out into the hallway. As he neared the front doors, a strange feeling made him pause. Something pulled at him, urging him to look back. And there, at the end of the hallway by the dust-covered window, stood a small figure. Jack's breath caught. It was Billy. The boy smiled, his eyes shining just as they had all those years ago. Billy said nothing. He simply raised a hand, just a small wave, a quiet farewell. Jack didn't blink, afraid the moment would vanish. But instead of sadness, a warmth spread through him. A tear slipped down his cheek, unnoticed. "Goodbye, my friend," Jack whispered. Then he turned and walked away. This time, he did not carry the weight of sorrow. Billy would always be with him, not as a wound, but as a beautiful, unshakable part of his life. As Jack stepped through the rusted school gates, he looked up at the sky. It was vast and blue, with clouds drifting lazily, like dreams finally set free. Jack smiled. For the first time in a long, long time, he felt truly at peace. He returned home lighter than he had ever been. The years ahead no longer felt lonely or uncertain, because he knew Billy would always be there, in every memory, in every breath. And now he would tell their story. He would speak of Billy, of their friendship, of the boy who had once dreamed of flying. He would pass it down to his children, to his grandchildren, so that Billy's name would never be forgotten. That night, Jack looked up at the starry sky and whispered, "You've flown so far, Billy. But I know you're still watching over me." A breeze stirred through the open window. And somewhere in the quiet of the night, a soft, distant laughter seemed to echo, gentle, peaceful.